Welcome to another edition of Beyond the Faceoff, and I'm here with my friend Mr. Ryan Galloway. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, Kevin. How are you doing? Great to be
I'm
back.
doing great. Here we are getting towards the spring here, and snow is going away, so that means sort of the end of the hockey season is coming up fairly soon. So that kind of transition in today's topic is talking about sort of the end of the season or an end of a career for you, Ryan. Talking about today, we're going to look at your retirement and sort of some questions surrounding that. And I've always was wondering when you actually made that decision is let's start with the big question. What led to your decision to retire from the on ice officiating?
The NHL does a great job. They implemented this probably, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago of succession planning, of knowing kind of when your end date was going to be. And the old way it used to be was you would end the season off and you'd wait for a letter in the mail for July 15th. And if a letter came that was unfortunately your termination papers and you knew your career was over, and that transition to more of a scheduled agreement between the official and the league of when your last day was going to be. So it was great because it put a little more humanity into it, a little more consideration for leaving the business with dignity, leaving the business when it was mutually agreed that it was time. So it was a great transition. So they approached me. It'd be 6 years ago now, 7 years ago. They approached me about beginning the succession planning discussion, and I had in my mind of how many years I wanted. They had in their mind how many years they wanted. They felt I had left, and we came to a mutual agreement in between those two numbers. Um, and it was a tough conversation. It was tough in the sense that you knew the day was coming. You knew at some point they were going to be coming, and I was getting to the age where I knew myself that I was coming to the end of my career. Um, but they began the conversation, and it was actually a really good experience to go through. Um, I was treated very well throughout the process, and the nice thing was when I left, I knew when my last day was going to be, so I could enjoy the last couple of years, and I changed my mindset of when I was out on the ice. Obviously, I was still working to do the job, but I transitioned my mindset to, okay, what can I do, what can I leave behind that helps the future officials. And the league did a good job of pairing me with some of the newer guys on staff, so to be able to share some of the knowledge that I'd got and pass along the knowledge that I'd been given from others when I was starting in my career. So to me that became a really important part of the last 5 years. So yeah, it was a mutually agreed upon number, and yeah, I left the business about as in about as best a situation as imaginable. The tributes that I was given, and my last game in Winnipeg was far beyond anything I could have imagined. So it was fantastic.
So yeah, now looking back, because now you're at the end of your officiating career. Now, when you're on the other end, when you were starting your on ice career in the NHL, do you were you paired up with more senior people to help with that transition? So, like you said, you wanted to impart some of your knowledge and wisdom to the younger guys that are in the rotation. So, when you started out, did you think about that? Well, they're putting me with these senior guys to learn from them, or how did that sort of work out?
Yeah, they do that. They definitely put you with senior guys to give you some experience. So when I got hired, as we've talked before, I started when I was 10 years old, but let's just say 12 years. And I never get hired until I was 29. So I had almost 18 years of experience before I got the nod to turn pro. But I still needed to be polished for the professional game, and I had the fundamentals. I had that established. It was what do I need to do different to bring my game up to the professional level, and to have the opportunity and experience, or the opportunity to work with guys that listen, there's a guy that when I started, he'd been in the NHL longer than I'd been alive. So to have his wealth of knowledge and his guidance, other guys like Brad Lazarowicz and Shane Heyer and Jay Shares. Dan Shakti was probably one of my greatest mentors, guy that I had the ultimate respect for. And I actually went through a period. It was probably 3 years into my career where I was paired up with him for it was probably about a third of the season. And the stuff that he showed me, not only on the ice but off the ice, and how to conduct yourself as a professional, and how to travel, and how to focus on controlling all those things outside of the game that is going to benefit you on the ice. Just managing kind of the smaller parts that will really help you on the ice. It was just a wealth of knowledge. So to be able to carry that forward later in my career and be able to share some of those same ideas and some of the things that I'd learned through the years, not only from the messages I'd been given, but also my own experience. It was really important to me to be able to share that with the newer officials.
No, that's awesome to hear that there actually is a succession plan that the NHL does to help you with that. And like you said, a number of years ago, you started those discussions about sort of that end date and when you're going to transition out. But at that time, did you reach out to friends and family and sort of get their input on your date of retirement? Or was this something that you just have sort of kept to yourself for the last number of years?
No, I didn't keep that a secret. I thought that was important to share that with people. And yeah, I did lean on people. I did lean on people for some guidance and on how to not only the on the ice stuff, but talking with people who had recently retired from whatever business they were in or whatever career they were in to learn about the transition off from a workforce to being that or living that retired life of time management. What's going to happen afterwards, where you lived 22 years with a set schedule and you had to be X place, and all of a sudden there's not the same level of responsibility. um, Leaning on them for guidance, getting some understanding from them, talking to people about the financial side of it, of what it costs to retire and setting yourself up. It was important to me that when I left the business that we were debt free, and that was something that had been passed along to me. Was you want to you don't want to live you don't want to live a pauper's life, but you also want to make sure you're prepared for when that paycheck stops, that you set yourself up well. And I think we did a good job of that. So yeah, I definitely leaned on a lot of people for not only support on leaving the ice, but also the after retirement things that are probably more important.
And when you did bring it up with them, were they surprised or were they supportive in helping you making some of those decisions?
I think there were some that were surprised that I was leaving the business at 51, but it's a young man's game. Uh, I got older and the players stayed the same age, so it's definitely a game that's it's for younger people, and that's where it's transitioned to. So I knew the time was coming. Um, so yeah, I think there were people that thought I was leaving early, um, but that was just that's their personal opinion as opposed to the realistic view of it. So, but for the most part, everybody was supportive. Everybody embraced it with me, and we enjoyed the last 5 years of knowing that the day was coming, and we were going to make the best of it.
So,
My wife, sorry, my wife has been the voice of reason for so many things, and I remember when I came back from my succession planning meeting when we came up with our number, and I didn't get the number I wanted, but what came along with that 5 year succession was failing me doing something absolutely criminal, some fraud or something against the company. I was more or less guaranteed 5 years of work, and that was the first time ever, because there's things in our contract that it's a performance based business, and if you're not living up to those performances, and they have the ability to terminate you on performance. So every year there's still that little bit of stress of whether it was going to be able to continue on working. But once I signed that succession, she said to me, she goes, "You've got 5 years now where you don't have to worry about a thing. You just go out there, do your job, help out the younger officials." Um, it didn't change my mindset of now I'm on vacation for the next 5 years. Probably the opposite.
Yeah.
It probably put more ownership on the last 5 years. Um, but she was the voice of reason that said, "Listen, you've got 5 years of security. You've got 5 years to enjoy. You know when your last day is. You can go out how you want." Um, so it was great advice that she gave me.
So yeah, you're sort of saying your mindset, you're sort of getting ready for this, but now, does your body agree with you now that you
Oh,
retired at the right time?
it's funny. I was doing some coaching last night with some officials, and they asked me that same question. They said, "Do you ever get the bug to be out there?" And I'm watching games. I'm seeing stuff happen. And I'm like, "Oh, geez, if I was out there, I'd do this." And boy, this would be a really easy situation to fix, or I'd handle that situation differently. And so you get that bug, and then I stand up out of my chair, and my knees go, "Yeah, there's not a chance you could be out there right now." So uh, no, the body was definitely giving me the signal that it was time. Listen, you can't skate for. I was reffing for 40 years, but I've been skating since I was probably 5 or 6. It's such a taxing force on the body that you can't leave the business without some sort of injury. So no, the body reminds me almost on a daily basis that I made the right decision.
Well, as you've mentioned, you've reached out to other mentors who have helped you in your career. When it came to retiring and you've leaned on them to ask them question, did they provide any advice that has really stuck out and sort of is at the top of mind when you made that decision to retire?
You're asking like the previous guys, did they give me advice? Is that what you're
Like
saying?
the people that were mentoring you, that you
Right.
were asking about, saying, "I've done my succession planning for the next 5 years." What kind of things would you? What kind of advice do you want to give me?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, the guys that I talked to the people I talked to that all retired, they said make sure you find a hobby, make sure you do something because there's going to be a lot of downtime once you're no longer working. And I've been able to keep as busy as I want to be. Um, Obviously on the financial side, some really good advice on financial planning and management. Um, and then my greatest mentor, he he always said to me, he said, just make sure you're passing along and sharing as much as you can to help the future of the program. And I think when I reflect back on the last 5 years, I think I was able to do that. I think I was able to help guys out. I took pride when I saw some of the guys that I'd been working with get the opportunity to work playoffs and are well on their way to a long and successful career. So I take a little bit of pride in that of seeing their success. For a little bit, I kind of yeah, I take a lot of pride in seeing people that I worked with get success and opportunities. Um, and yeah, the biggest thing was just make sure you're sharing. Don't leave the business and just disappear. Make sure there's ways you can stay involved with the game. There's things you can do to help out the program, help out the system, help out the development, and that's kind of been where we talk about the title of the show from first puck drop to overtime. We started off with the first puck drop on episode 1, and now we're in that overtime, and it's where I am now in my career.
So, in your last season, as you're winding down, was there a sort of a particular game or a moment that you thought that I think I've accomplished everything that I set out to do during my career in the NHL?
Well, I didn't. I didn't get everything that I wanted, but that's on me. That's my own personal. That's my own personal. We all have wants. Of course, I would have liked to have worked further into the playoffs and had the opportunity to be out there for Stanley Cup Finals. That was something that was never accomplished, and for whatever reason, it never happened. And that's my cross to bear, and it's nobody's fault but my. I won't even say fault. It's it didn't happen, but there's been a lot of other things that have been probably more rewarding personally than that opportunity. So as I was going through the last 5 years, um, I really have no regrets or no wants or wishes or geez, I wish I'd had that opportunity.
Yeah.
I was incredibly fortunate with the opportunities that I did have to have worked the playoffs and to have worked international tournaments and outdoor games, all-star games, to be able to work those kind of events. I really have no regrets or aside from the Stanley Cup, that would be the only thing that I feel I never had the opportunity to accomplish.
So as you had mentioned that yeah, your body is starting to tell you that yeah, you're not fit to be on ice anymore. Thinking about
Oh,
your
wait a second.
your
Wait a second. I'm gonna correct you on that. I'm fit enough to be on the ice. It just might be a little more painful than it was.
okay,
Uh, yeah, no, I know
fair
what you're saying,
enough,
Kev. Go, sorry,
fair
I
enough.
interrupted, but I had to correct that. When you said fitness, I'm like, oh, wait a second,
Wait
I'm
a
not
minute.
sure about that.
So what is one of the things that you're going to miss about being on the ice, and is there anything that you're glad to leave behind?
As I've said before, the one thing that I definitely won't miss about my career was the amount of time being away, being able to spend more time with friends and family, and even just the simple things, Kev, of being able to go for a bike ride, and it's just for the sake of going for a bike ride, or go for a paddle on a lake, and it's not having to be a workout. It's just going out and doing it for the enjoyment of it. So I won't miss the travel, but what I will miss, and I've talked about the people that I've met along the way,
Yeah.
but as far as on the ice itself, it's the battle, it's the being out there. I still think it's kind of cool when I flip on the TV and I'm watching highlights or I'm watching a game and it's like, I was out there, or a clip from the past will come on and I see 82 flash by. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool being out there. So yeah, I miss that aspect of it of being out there and having a part in the game on the ice. Um, that that I miss. I definitely miss the camaraderie, the teamwork, that aspect of it, the friendships of the guys that I worked with. I miss that. I miss the times in the locker room of sitting there and talking about hockey and talking about everything else, talking about life, and it's a very unique group to be a part of, and that's definitely one thing I miss.
So now that your on ice career has ended, what's next for you? What are you just talking off air? I know that you're still keeping involved with the whole in staying involved in the game in some capacity, but I want to share with everyone about what's your plan in the next little while and how you're staying involved.
So I go back to what my recently retired friend said about getting a hobby and making sure I'm keeping myself busy, and I've more than filled up my time. Um, I'm, I'm I'm involved with the development program back in Manitoba. I think I'm on 4 or 5 different committees right now in their development system, and working with them to promote and develop the future officials. Working with one of the junior leagues back in Manitoba, and then just out of the blue this past summer, I got a call from an old colleague of mine who left the ice several years back, and we still use the term supervisor, and I really want to get away from using that term. He's a officiating coach with the NCHC, which is one of the NCAA Division One conferences. He asked me if I'd be interested in taking on a role as one of their officiating coaches, and um, it was an interesting conversation because having never worked college hockey, never having done anything with the NCAA, I felt apprehensive is not the right word, and I wish I could come up with the right word, but I felt stepping into a room that I'd never been in before. Um, I was a little concerned with what I was getting into, but the reception I've had from the officials that I'm working with and from the other officiating coaches uh, has been a great way to stay in the game, share some of the knowledge that I've had, support them in their journey to whatever heights they want to accomplish in officiating. So to be able to go back and work with them and work in a high level at a high level and a high stress environment, um, it's been fun to transition off the ice into that role and be part of the game in a different role. To be able to talk with coaches, and which was something on the ice I had plenty of opportunity. We had times off the ice where we could talk, but to actually go down into the dressing room now and talk with coaches before the game and understand their side of the game and where they're coming from, and being in that position of sharing the mindset of the officials that maybe they were definitely getting it, but hearing it from another voice of, what our guys go through out on the ice and what they think about when they're making calls and making decisions and why they do certain things. To be able to have that conversation, um, it's I've said before and I'll say it again. I say it ad nauseum that we're all here for the same reason. We're all here to make the game better, and the more we have an understanding of what each of us does in the game, I think the better off we are in the game as a whole. So I'm really enjoying this opportunity that's come in my overtime portion of my career.
So yeah, you say you definitely have a chance to coach and mentor these officials during these games, and knowing that you're a retired NHL linesman, are they listening to every word? Are they challenging you, or are they just like a sponge? And do some of them like have aspirations of becoming an NHL official?
Yeah, listen, there's lots of the officials there that are still aspiring to get the opportunity to work pro hockey. There are some that this is their highlight, and this is the highest level that they've been striving for, and they've reached that goal, and that's commendable. Uh, it's been both, Kev. It's been guys that everyone from from the most veteran official that we have on staff in the NCHC to our most newest official, they've all been incredibly receptive to the feedback and the information I'm trying to provide them. And I actually appreciate, and when there is a two-way conversation, I go into all those meetings with the or coaching sessions with the officials, and I always say to them, this is always a two-way conversation.
Yeah.
It's not me just coming and telling you what you did right and what you did wrong. Um, if there's something that I'm saying that's wrong or you need clarification on it, having that two-way conversation is important. So when there is a question, when there is a challenge isn't even the right word, but a different perspective. And listen, this is a really, really easy job to do from up top and from a video screen. It's really easy when I can sit there and I can slow things down and watch it in slow motion and zoom in on a single play and say whether they're right or wrong. And to me, that's irrelevant. In the moment, of course, we want to be right. We want to make sure we're making the right calls. But to me, the more important part of it is what can we take from it? What can we learn from that, so that the next time that happens, we've experienced it once before. We're not making the same mistake, or we're less likely to make the same mistake. So to me, the more important part is what can we do differently next time? Whether it's battling for better sight lines or even the simple things like getting the rest you need so that you're physically able to do the job. Being able to share those ideas, it's been a lot of fun. It's been very rewarding too. I will say that. I talked about some of the rewards that I had on the ice and the intrinsic rewards that we have as officials.
Yeah.
This has been a whole new level of rewarding, of being able to share that information and see how it's being received. And the most exciting part to me is where this league is basically a Friday Saturday league. So I see something on a Friday that I suggest, and to see it implemented or tried to be implemented, because I'm not naive. I was out on the ice. I had coaches telling me, or officiating coaches telling me, try this, and for whatever reason it doesn't work in my game. But the fact that they take what I say and at least try it, to me that's incredibly rewarding, just to see somebody receptive to what you're saying, and to be able to broaden their experience so that they are looking at it from another perspective. So yeah, it's been great.
And when you started with this program, did you expect to have any of those intrinsic rewards, or is this sort of a bit of a surprise that this is what you're feeling after going through this?
Yeah, I've always done coaching, officiating coaching, um, but this is definitely the highest level that I've worked. Um, so it's rewarding in a different degree, and as opposed to when I'm working with youth officials and I'm coaching on the fundamentals. Now I'm able to share kind of those the finer points. The as I mentioned about when I got into the NHL, I needed to be polished. I had the fundamentals, so to be able to share some of those little suggestions that maybe they've never heard before, um, I think has been a lot of fun, and yeah, rewarding to a different level, because I'm bringing in a different skill set that maybe they've never heard before, and to be able to share that has been fantastic.
So now that you've sort of been off the ice, do you have any goals that you want to try and accomplish now that that your on ice is done, and it's like you're saying you're wanting to help and coach these other officials, but have you set any goals in your mind now that you are off the ice?
Yeah. Well, personally, I'm still living the rock star dream. I still want to learn how to play guitar better. That's one of the things I want to do. I'm gonna skip past my uh, childhood dreams of being a stuntman. I'm gonna skip by that one. Um, but yeah, kind of exploring or different opportunities to um, bring in some creative ideas, doing some woodworking, and I've got some projects that I need to do around the house and at the cottage. So those are things that are going to occupy my time. But as far as hockey goes, yeah, I've definitely got some goals. I really we're gonna get into the weeds here, but I really have a feeling that we can make the game better, and that comes from what I said earlier about my meetings with the coaches of having discussions as everybody involved with the game, and understanding what each of our roles are in the game, and getting past the us versus them of the officials are against us, or um, the coaches are treating us in certain ways, and parents are treating us certain ways, and players are treating us certain ways. I think the more we have a better understanding of what each of our roles and what each of us puts into the game, um, I think we're going to be better off for it. So I'd like to that's my goal, is trying to work to change that mindset. I've got some different ideas of what I'd like to bring forward to help do that. I've been doing some small projects with Hockey Manitoba with their coaching program, of giving them a perspective from the officiating side. But what I'd really like to see, Kev, is the opportunity for the different groups just to get together in a room and have some have some officials on a stage, have some coaches on a stage, have some players, and have some parents up there just talking, so that we're understanding how important not only the game is to each of us individually, but what we can do to make the game better. And I think that is such a easily transferable mindset to any sport, because I'm not naive enough to think that the conflict that happens in an arena doesn't happen on a soccer pitch or a football stadium or a baseball diamond. It happens everywhere, and the more we can work together to better that, as opposed to each individual area trying to come up with their way of making the game better.
Yeah.
I think we finally need to take that step and bring everybody together. I did a presentation for Hockey Manitoba probably 15 years ago, and I did the whole Venn diagram. I'm sure you know what a Venn diagram is. Like
Yeah.
the three circles that are overlapping each other, and in the middle is the game. You got the players coaches, administration, and you have the officials. But in the middle, it's all the same thing. We're all here for the game. Um, and I think I know we can do better as a society to you know to make the environment, the sporting environment, better for everybody involved, and that takes cooperation from all the different stakeholders in the games.
So that sort of leads me into sort of one of the last questions I have for you is your legacy as an official. What would you like people to see how you contributed to making the game better? What would you like your legacy to be known as?
Well, I mean, I hope that my legacy within my role in the game has been that helping officials, helping develop the program, help motivate the next 12-year-old kid who decides he wants to pull a striped jersey over his head. That that there are opportunities, whether it's pro or not. There's lots of opportunities in officiating. Um, that's that's my that's the legacy I hope to leave behind on the officiating side. I hope my bigger legacy and is what I just mentioned about working to make the game better for everybody. I think I bring a an experience that very few have. I bring a passion for wanting to make the game better for everybody. Um, and I'd like to harness that and bring it forward and hopefully when my day on Earth is done is that they can look back and say that I had a small part in making that change.
So, sort of piggybacking onto that, think of yourself when you first fold that sweater over your body and you're going out to officiate your first game. What would be one or two pieces of advice you would have given your younger self to tell you about your career longevity and any advice about officiating?
Um, I always I always had fun. Sometimes I probably took it more seriously than it needed to be. And not seriously in the sense of performance, but I think sometimes I just had this demeanor. And listen, I'm just as responsible. I used to have the mindset of it was an us versus them. It was me and my teammates against the world. Um, I'd like to I'd like to tell my younger self that just go out there, have fun, enjoy the experience, enjoy every opportunity that comes along the way. Um, and I did, but I think there were times where I could have done more. And then my only regret leaving the business is I was probably not an advocate enough for myself. Um, I was a good teammate. I always believed that with hard work comes success, and I always felt that my time was going to come, and I would never want to come across as the guy who is in the boss's ear every moment and trying to sort of backdoor my way into it. I always felt that when my time was there, it would be there. So I didn't take advantage of the opportunities to advocate for myself as much as I probably could have. So when I talk to young officials now that are working their way up at whatever league, is not stand up for yourself isn't the right word, but don't be afraid to speak up for yourself either. When when you're being overlooked and you felt you've done everything, don't be afraid to ask the questions of, okay, well, what am I missing? What am I doing wrong? What do I need to do to get to that level? And I would ask those questions and I would try to implement them, but I don't think I did it enough. So when I look back at my career, that was probably the one regret I have, is that I probably should have said more for myself. Without, again, There's a way of doing it, and there's a way of not doing it. I would never want to be the guy who, as I said, is in the boss's ear and getting the opportunities for the wrong reason. And I would also not want to be the guy who's stepping on somebody else to get those opportunities.
Yeah.
I would, at the end of the day, I have to look at myself in the mirror, and I have to realize that when I'm getting those opportunities, I've gotten it for the right reasons. And I don't think I could live with myself if I knew that I had done something that was to the detriment of somebody else.
No, I do appreciate you sharing a bunch of lots of good coaching advice there that hopefully a lot of people will sort of take to heart and will learn and implement during their hopefully the young officials that are watching this will take and implement into their whole career, hopefully to have a long career like you did over the last number of years. So
well, thanks for allowing me to thanks for allowing me to share that. I haven't said that to a lot of people, and I appreciate the opportunity to share that, because it is important. It is important, and that whole mindset, again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Officiating is just a microcosm for society. Sport is just a microcosm for society. That same mindset carries over to whether you're a accountant, whether you're working wherever, whatever career you have. That same mindset is easily transferable.
no, absolutely. So, as you always hate when we say the word overtime, we've come to the conclusion of today's episode of talking about your retirement. So,
hang on, I'm gonna give a point in fact, or a case in fact. So this past weekend, I'm working a couple college games. The first night, somebody in the dressing room said overtime. What do you think happened in the first game?
overtime.
Overtime. I'm telling you, it's Murphy's Law. If you say overtime, it's going to happen. So, PTSD, I still have it. All right, let's go to overtime.
Well, with that, so as we do here on every episode, whenever we go into overtime, that means we have questions from our audience that we're going to be asking Ryan on his career and his opinion on stuff. And had quite a few people reach out and ask some questions. So, which one should I start with? Actually, let's go way back. Before you got hired to the NHL, did you ever feel like you just weren't going to get hired, and at any point you just wanted to give up?
Yeah, there were many times. There were many times along the way where I felt that it didn't matter what I was doing, that I wasn't going to have that opportunity. I don't think I ever had the experience or had the feeling that I wanted to quit. I know there were times where in fact, the year I got hired, I was ready to give up my 10-year career in the Western Hockey League, because had I not been getting hired from the Western League, that I always felt that maybe it was time to step aside and give somebody else the opportunity. So I did have the idea or the thought of stepping aside from opportunities or from different leagues that I was working to open up a spot for somebody else, but I never had the feeling of wanting to quit. I had lots of times where I was frustrated, where I thought I should have the opportunity to work some different events, and it was my turn, and for whatever reason, it didn't happen. It was frustrating, but now when I look back at it, I have no regrets. I have nothing to be upset about for not having had those. And listen, maybe had I had those opportunities, maybe this one wouldn't have come along. So who knows? Everything works out the way it should. I firmly believe that. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Next question.
Okay. Next one is kind of a two-parter. We had somebody ask about what your pregame routine would be. Like when you're in the dressing room getting prepped, did you have music playing in in the room, or did you have your earpods on and just listening to some music yourself? And how did you get prepped? And then also, uh, behind the scenes, are there substitute officials at every game in case of injury, or do the remaining officials sort of pick up for that lost person? And then are those extra, if there are people, do they come in and do the pregame in the room with you as well?
I'll answer the second question first. So during the regular season, there's no backup official. So if an official gets hurt, we go down to the three official system. So if it's a linesman that gets hurt, we go to a two referee, one linesman scenario. If it's a referee that gets hurt, we go to the old three official system of one referee, two linesmen. Once we get into the playoffs, there's always a standby referee, and he would step in if either a referee or linesman got hurt. In deciding games in rounds, they would have both the referee and linesman on standby, and they would actually be in the dressing room, dressed, warmed up, ready to go. Basically, the only thing they would have to do is pull the jersey over their head, and they'd be able to get out on the ice. So that's how it is in the playoffs. If deeper into the playoffs, they would have standbys of both at certain. I think it's a third and fourth round, I believe, is we have standbys of both referees and linesmen. But no, during a regular season game, there's no standby official. If it was a travel related issue, they did everything they could to have an official, hop on a plane first thing in the morning. If my flight out of Minnesota wasn't going to go through, they would try to bring somebody else in to be able to cover that game. There was a game in Edmonton a couple of years back where they actually had to use minor league, non-NHL contracted officials to work the game because of some weather situations. That was a one-off. I've never seen that before. But no, they do a great job of trying to have all the games covered due to weather. And then your first question was my pregame routine. So I had a very structured, regimented pregame warm-up. It started 60 minutes to the dot before we're going out on the ice, and my physical warm-up was 30 minutes to the dot. It has nothing to do with superstition. It's just that I had done it for so long that's exactly and precisely how long it took. I would listen to the same playlist, starting with the same song. Again, that was strictly because the beat of the first song I listened to happened to match the the portion of my warm-up that I was doing at that time, and that's the only reason. It wasn't superstitious, even though my wife thinks I'm incredibly superstitious. It's not. And then the last half hour before the game was just getting dressed, getting ready for the game. And the other part of the physical side of warming up, you were also getting mentally prepared for the game. Doing some mental training on what you might see in the game and being mentally ready for it. And then I would always have either an apple or banana before I stepped out on the ice, and then in between each period I would either have another apple or banana. So I always had, everywhere I went, I had to have three. It started off with apples, and later in my career it became bananas. But I always had those in my equipment bag that I would pick up from the concierge lounge or from the grocery store or the convenience store and take them to the game. So yeah, that was my pregame.
All right, a couple more questions here. How many pairs of skates does an official go through in a year? And do you buy your own from wherever, or does the NHL have a source for official skates?
Well, it's funny, Kev. When you're starting out in hockey and you're working your way up and you're not making a whole lot of money, you have to buy your own stuff. And then when you turn pro and you have the income to be able to buy your own stuff, they amazingly give it to you. So, yeah, the NHL outfitted us from head to toe of the equipment that we wore, and had some specialty equipment that some guys would have. I basically wore every piece of equipment that was available. So yeah, they supply our equipment. as far as skates, we get a new pair of skates every season. I hate breaking in new skates, so I would try to wear my skates as long as I could. Took care of my equipment. Taking it out and airing it out is important for it to be able to last. Uh, yeah, I absolutely hate having to break in a new pair of skates. So I would probably go uh, 2 seasons for sure, maybe 2.5 before I would switch out my skates. Now, I'd probably change the steel on them 2 or 3 times in that same amount of time. But the skates themselves, and the last skates that I wore, I mean, they were basically indestructible. They were so well built that aside from cosmetic damage to them, I never broke them down to the point that I need to replace them.
And whatever happens to that old equipment, does the NHL then donate them to some other charity organizations, or what happens with that?
Well, the equipment is ours, and the the other equipment I would probably change every season. So like my shin pads, my elbow pads, my pants, I would change every season. And what I did is I would pass them along to another, like a younger official that might have been in need of stuff. And what I said, I didn't I never took a dime for it. To me, I never paid for it, and I'm not going to sell it. So I would give it along to like a junior level official. And what I would say to them is, if your stuff that you're wearing right now, if it can still be usable, pass that along to somebody further down. So like you're paying it forward.
Yeah,
And that's
that's awesome. And then this is kind of a personal question for me: is when you became an official, were you assigned a number? And are there any numbers that are off limits to choose? And are there any numbers that are actually retired that nobody can ever select?
There's no numbers that are retired. Nobody, since they went to the numbering system, I can't remember if anybody wore number one or not.
And
One was never used.
did you were you part of it when there wasn't a numbering system, or have you always been part of the numbering system?
No, in the NHL, I always had a number. So, and when I got hired, Dave Baker, who was the manager, one of the managers of officiating, he worked in the office. He called me up. He said, "We want you to wear number 82," and I was in zero position to say otherwise. So that's the number that I wore for 22 years. And it's funny, Kev. It's funny how that number has played into when I look back at the number 82. You remember the old bus line that came out of Westwood that took
Yeah.
you to the
Yeah.
Unicity Mall? It was bus route number 82, and I would ride that probably 3 or 4 times a week to go to Unicity. I only found this out probably 3 or 4 years back driving through my old neighborhood. Remember the park at the end of Cortez? They
Oh
actually put
yeah,
an address. They
yeah.
actually put an address number on it, and it's 82. And I couldn't tell you how many nights we're playing, hide and go seek or playing football and baseball in that park and hanging out with my friends there. It was a central part of the neighborhood. It's just funny how that number, coincidentally enough,
Yeah.
played in. Um, to go to the other side of the question of numbers that aren't used. So number one, number 99. There's another number, sort of mid six or high 60s, that's not used. Um, and then 35. If you ever see number 35 on a referee or number 85 on a linesman, it means either their equipment got lost somewhere or their equipment got damaged. That's the numbered jersey they have in every building, so that there's a jersey in the room. So 35 and 85 are used for that. Every other number's open. They segment off the minor league referees from the full time referees. I think it's 2 to 30 or 2 to 34 are generally the full time guys, and everything past 35 are the minor league referees. And I might be off a little bit on those numbers, but they do segment off so you can tell who's the minor league versus the full time guys.
And how many officials during an NHL season are there? Are there like 100 different officials rotating around, or what's the number of officials?
I think our full time numbers are generally around like 32 to 34. I think that's probably the numbers where we are. And then it changes from season to season based off of succession of how many guys they're going to have to bring in or have to prepare for to take over full time positions. There might be five or six minor league referees. At times we've had significantly more than that. At times we've had just a couple. And then minor league linesmen, same thing. There might be two to five at any given time.
So there wouldn't be any fear of actually running out of numbers of people officiating in the NHL then.
No, no, we never get into like a over 100. We never get past 90, 98.
Yeah. All right, cool. Those are the questions that I had for you today. So with that, I'm going to leave the last word to you, Mr. Ryan. So I'm not sure if you have a topic in mind, so I'll just sort of keep talking until you think of something that you could talk about. And yeah, I appreciate you spending some time today talking about retirement and some of the goals and how you're sort of keeping involved in the game. Very, very interesting topics. And yeah, for those that have questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments so that we can ask Ryan on an upcoming episode of Beyond the Faceoff. So with that, I'll
Yeah,
leave
great,
it over to you.
great questions, and thanks to everybody who wrote in with it and for the feedback on the on how the videos are going. Hope it's been educational and giving you a different glimpse into the officiating world, and not only at the pro level but also at the amateur. It's been a great experience. Um, I'm gonna carry on sort of with the theme of what we've talked about of the after leaving the ice of getting into the coaching side of it. I want to talk a little bit about from the officiating side of receiving the coaching of you know it's really difficult when you go into a dressing room and you want to have a conversation with somebody about what happened in the game of there not being that two-way communication. So whenever if you're an official and you're being supervised, coached, um, make sure you're make sure you're adding to the conversation. Make sure if you need to have something clarified that you take the time to ask for further clarification on a question. Don't ever feel like you should just sit there and listen. The way learning happens best is that you not only leave there with the information, but you also leave there with a complete and full understanding of it. And when a coach comes into the dressing room and has information for you, just try it. You never know what's going to work, and none of us expect that you should change everything you do because you're clearly doing a lot of things right to be working that level of hockey to begin with. But if they have a couple little things that they say, hey, maybe try this when you're on the blue line or when you're down in the end zone as a referee, maybe try this in your position. Give it a try and see if it works. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But the fact that you're at least trying it shows that you're coachable, shows that you're willing to learn, shows that you're willing to make yourself better. Um, and what's the harm in trying? You're getting information from a resource that whether it's an ex NHL official that's stepping off the ice to share it with you, or it's a guy who's working junior hockey that's coming back to a midget AAA game. Um, there's always something you can learn. So listen to what they have to say. Talk with them, and find yourself somebody. I hate the word mentorship. That in the sense, mentorship to me has always been somebody you gravitate towards. I hate the idea of being assigned a mentor because that to me is not a mentor. That's just somebody who can help you out. I have people that I've naturally gravitated towards, and I have people who've gravitated towards me, who I take a lot of pride when they use the word he's my mentor. I take a lot of pride when somebody says it because that's something you put a lot of trust in somebody. That's somebody you're looking for not only for guidance on the ice but also stuff away from the game and growing you as a person. So find somebody in your world that you can lean on, that you have the trust to listen to and take guidance from, and yeah, it's gonna make us all better. So that'd be my message for today: is when you have a coach come into the room, you know, do your best to absorb what they're saying and try to implement it into your game. So, thanks, Kev.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. We'll see you next episode.
Sounds great.